Unfortunately, due to personal reasons, I was not able to participate at yesterday's meeting, to participate in yesterday's meeting, but I'm happy to be present here today. Once again, unfortunately, I was not able to be present here yesterday. I had missed my plane to Russia, but I finally made it to Moscow, and I'm happy to be here. So terrorism and extremism are an important issue, and I have a number of thoughts I would like to share with you. When there are attempts to promote democracy in Arab countries, extremism usually comes to the surface, breaks free. We've seen that in Algeria in the 1990s, when the Islamic Party managed to win a parliamentary election. And we also know the events of the Arab Spring in Egypt, in Tunisia. In those countries, it also started from attempts at promoting democracy, at democratizing those nations, and extremism grew strong and became a powerful force back then. In our country, we have had to deal with terrorism and its manifestations for the past 15 years. And we see that mass media are failing to do the tasks, to perform the tasks that they should be carrying out, especially with a view to this surge in extremist sentiment and terrorist activity. I believe this fight against terrorism, against extremism, requires us to analyze this weird correlation between, attempts at promoting democracy in Arab countries and the rise of extremism. We need to analyze the comparison between our countries and Western democracies. We need to find answers to some of those questions. We need to seriously, profoundly research and study terrorism as a phenomenon. We need to have a scientific approach here because, as we all know, there is no military solution against terrorism. We need to go back and study history and look at history. Let's think of what happened in Afghanistan in 1979 and what happened in Afghanistan after the Soviet Union withdrew its forces from that country in 1990. And what was going on in Algeria, what was happening in Algeria at the time. We need to study that. We know there were Algerian mujahideen fighting in Afghanistan, fighting against Soviet troops. And then those former mujahideen returned to Algeria, to their home country. European countries have seen such examples before, when people would go to war in other countries, like the war in Spain in the 1930s. We know how French people would be traveling to Syria to participate in the conflicts in that country. I don't know how far we are able to draw parallels here, but I think this notion of former fighters, former combatants going back home once the war is over from a different country, especially if those were militants fighting for a radical extremist group, I believe we should study this phenomenon, study this mechanism. European countries are facing exactly that threat today. When European Muslims go to the Middle East to fight in a war in Syria, for example, or Iraq, and then they go back to Europe, being radicalized and armed with some real combat experience. I believe these are very important issues. Therefore, I have the following suggestion, proposal. I believe we need to go from general issues to to specifics. We need to go down to some of the particular aspects, especially taking into account the specific individual experience of journalists from different countries. For example, like I said, in the 1990s, Algeria experienced this rise of terrorism. About 120 reporters have been killed in our country in recent years. And that is why we need to analyze the influence of radical ideas. I believe that Arab countries specifically, they do have something to study. They do have material for research. We need to answer the question how it is possible, how it has come to be that our Muslim girls, young women, fall for the propaganda from extremist organizations. Why is it that young girls today ditch their families, leave their families, drop out of school, and go to war-torn countries to become part of terrorist organizations? This probably means that our education systems need to be addressed as well. Thank you.